walks away after winning his 100th game as the head coach here at Notre Dame.
The reason I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I was born in this country. It isn't what you have, it's what you're taught about the values of life.
We trying to save souls.
So there's a rule in life that you're either growing or you're dying. And like an old friend once said, we as Americans need to start winning again.
Everyone should ask this question. Am I willing to endure the pain and the suffering and the sacrifice it takes to be a champion?
Brooke Rollins. This is a tremendous young lady. She's originally from Glen Rose, Texas, and served as President and Chief Executive Officer of AFPI. And she is just an outstanding lady. She has served in the White House, Director of the Office of American Innovation. She is just an outstanding person. She graduated from University of Texas A&M with a degree in agricultural development and was the first female to be elected student body president. I've never seen anybody who's as proud of the Aggies as Brooke is. And after earning her Juris Doctor with honors at the University of Texas School of Law and served as Governor Rick Perry's policy director before running the Texas Public Policy Organization to a national force. Rollins and her husband currently spend a large majority of their free time with their 4 very active children at baseball games, cattle shows, piano lessons, and Aggie football games. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had some great guests here before. I've never had one, I say this from the bottom of my heart, that I respect more than our guest today, Brooke Rollins. Brooke, it's an honor to have you on my show today. You know, we very first met over 30 years ago when you were the Cotton Bowl queen. Most people know you as a political icon, but I'm curious, how did you come about to be the Cotton Bowl queen back in '93?
Oh, Coach Holtz. Well, first of all, that's when we first met, as you mentioned. And I mean, who knew God had such a unbelievable plan that you would be one of my best friends, one of my inspirations for 3 decades. We met at the Texas A&M Notre Dame Cotton Bowl game. I think the Aggies may have run out of time on that game, but I don't really remember. But you were the great Lou Holtz then, and you're even the greater Lou Holtz now. So what a joy to be on with you. You know, the Cotton Bowl queen, I was a pageant girl, and I grew up in a small town in Texas with 1,200 people, and not many people in my family had gone to college, and knew I was going to pay for it myself. So I found the beauty pageant circuit. I was never very successful, frankly. I got a couple of 5th runner-ups and 8th runner-ups and 12th runner-ups, but in Miss Texas and a few others, the Miss Texas Farm Bureau, the Maid of Cotton, I did all of them. But when I got to Texas A&M and the Aggies made it to the Cotton Bowl that year, Texas A&M had an entire process on choosing their queen for that Cotton Bowl, and I have no idea how I got selected, but I did. But the thing I remember most, Coach, from that Cotton Bowl, other than meeting you, which turned into a lifelong friendship, which is kind of crazy, here we are 30 years later, but other than meeting you was how cold that Cotton Bowl was. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember, because I hate cold.
It was 0 degrees and we were playing football on January 1st. It was wild.
It really was. Now, I learned more about you than I did know. I had no idea you were a hog wrestling champion.
Oh,
I did hear more about this. And what exactly is hog wrestling? And how did you end up as a champion hog wrestler in Texas?
Well, we are talking about really important things today, Coach Holtz. I love it. I love it. Well, there is a wild hog explosion competition every year in Bandera, Texas. And we found it, I don't know, I would like to probably best to say that this was 20 or 30 years ago, back in my youthful days. But this actually wasn't that long ago, maybe a decade ago, that my sister Ann and my other sister Helen and my amazing mom and all of our then little kids, now they're all in their teens and early 20s, but we all decided to go down and enter the wild hog explosion in Bandera. And long story we don't have time for now, but my sister Ann and I ended up winning the whole thing against women who were much younger than we were. But we had a strategy and a plan, which seems to be a sort of a common theme in my life. You always have to have a strategy and you always have to have a plan. And we had a plan to wrestle that wild hog, and he was wild and he was a big hog, and then put him into a bag and drag him across the finish line. And if I'll be darned, we didn't only win that year in belt buckles that are about this big in true Texas style, but I think we may have set the world record that year. I don't know if it still stands, but wow, what a blast from the past, Coach. I don't think I've ever talked about that on camera before. So,
I tell you, I've known you for 30 years. I had no idea you were the hog wrestling champion. Now, I tell you, to be the Cotton Bowl queen and the hog wrestling champion, that's a combination rarely found in an individual.
I bet you're right, for better and worse.
But I also understand you're a coach of the hot tamales. What inspired you to become a coach, and what has coaching taught you about life?
Well, it's going to be, I believe, when I am at the pearly gates, hopefully in a while, a few more years, maybe a couple more decades. I have more work to do here. But you know, when I'm up there and I get to meet Jesus and get to talk about, you know, what an unbelievably blessed life I led, with all of the, I mean, gosh, small town girl from Glen Rose, Texas, raised by a single mom who ends up in the West Wing of the White House and as a key advisor to perhaps the most consequential president of our lifetime. But at the very top of that list, right up there, is going to be getting to coach my daughter in Little League softball, the hot tamales, and I will say the city champions for the University Little League. We won it all a couple of years ago. So I hung up my coaching clipboard when they entered their school softball teams. But for several years here in Fort Worth, it was just one of the greatest experiences of my life. And Coach, you'll appreciate that I think we're probably the only Little League softball or baseball team with a mission statement that the girls drafted themselves, that I hung up in every one of the games on the fence, and we talked about the mission statement and what we're working to do. And yeah, I know I took it probably a lot more serious than my daughter and her all of her 9, 10, and 11-year-old friends. But it was an amazing experience. I'd do it again in a second. And it's really, I've heard you say this before too, Coach. It's really a reflection of life, and I think what we're called to do and to be our best and work as a team and have a common goal and never give up and always go for the win every single time. And it was really fun to get to do that in sports with my kids.
Well, you know, you can have a mission statement, but if your players aren't on a mission, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But here's what I found about coaching. You know, Brooks, you could go into business, make a lot of money, and when you die, that ends.
Yeah.
But when you're coaching, you have a chance to be significant. And significant means you help other people be successful, and that lasts many a lifetime. Even though Woody Hayes has been dead, as long as I was coaching, he was still alive. And then the people that I coached, Barry Alvarez, as well as Urban Meyer, the list goes on, it's still Woody Hayes on it. Now,
Coach, can I say to that point, if you don't mind, I know this is you interviewing me, but I want to say something about you. I live here in Fort Worth. My kids go to a great school here. Their head football coach was one of your former players at Arkansas. And Keith Burns. And before I even knew the connection to you, so he wasn't doing this because I was sitting in the audience, to your point about having a lasting effect on people's lives, he was just meeting the parents. He didn't know who I was. He just moved here. He'd had an incredible career coaching D1, coaching in the NFL. He was all SEC playing for you at Arkansas. I mean, he's had decades. And of all of his experiences, the one that he chose to talk about to all of us parents, and you know, he's kind of in his retirement job. He said he told you decades ago that his dream job was to be a high school football coach. And somehow my kids got him in Fort Worth. But he talked about you from the moment he talked about his vision and what he was trying to do with our little high school football program. He talked about the great Lou Holtz, again, having no idea that you and I had been friends for 30 years. So the effect that you have had that continues through generations down to my children who are now being coached by someone that you coached 30, 40 years ago is just remarkable. May we all aspire to make such a difference in people's lives, Coach. God bless you.
Well, thank you. I never felt I coached football. I felt I coached life, and had three
Yeah.
rules. Do the right thing so you can build trust. Do everything the best of your ability. Not everybody can be an A student. Everybody can be the best, and show people you care. You build love in an organization,
Yeah.
it's absolutely unbelievable. Now, I
Amen.
want to learn more about your career. You built the most successful state think tank in the country, the Texas Public Policy Foundation. How did that come about? And when did you start learning that? And did you always envision it would become as large as it is today?
You know, this is such a great story and slightly boring, so I'm going to try to shorten it. But my goal was always to be a stay-at-home mom. That's always what I wanted to do. That was always sort of my mission statement, was to meet a wonderful man, my husband, Mark, to start a family together and to really focus on that. I never planned to do more. Obviously, if we had the luxury to be able for me to stay home. So I finished at Texas A&M. I went to law school at that little school in Austin. Can't remember the name right now. And I graduated from that little school in Austin. And then I practiced law for just a little bit. Wasn't really for me. I didn't feel like I was making a huge difference. And then Rick Perry called, said, "Do you want to come?" He'd just become governor. George Bush had just become president back in the Gore Bush race years ago. And I said, "You know what? I would love to do that, but I'm not going to be working for long. But Governor Perry, thank you." And so I did that for a couple of years. I loved it. That's where I pivoted from law into public policy. It was really a God thing for me. It was really my mission field was the public policy field. Instead of working in a church, I was working for a governor. And when I was wrapping up my time with Governor Perry, we hadn't had children yet, but was really ready to kind of start focusing on that. I got a call about a little think tank based in San Antonio called the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Now, keep in mind, I had just finished 2 years as Rick Perry's policy chief, and I never even heard of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. The call went something like this: "We've really struggled. We don't know if TPPF is going to continue, but we want to give it one more try." And I said, "Well, you know what? I'll give you a year, because I bet in a year, hopefully, God willing, we'll have started our family." And Coach Lou Holtz, if I didn't look up 15 years later, and the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which was just two of us back when I started 20 plus years ago, had almost 120 staffers, the largest state think tank in the country, had the best people working to secure the freedom in Texas, but eventually pivoting to the mission of using Texas as a model for the country in all key issues, move in a direction of freedom and more opportunity and less poverty in those 15 years. And I believe that the Texas Public Policy Foundation was the driver in that, and that there were no clients. We were not lobbyists other than lobbying for freedom. And to have that sort of voice in the Texas Capitol, I think made all the difference.
Well, you served President Trump and his administration at the highest level.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of working in the White House?
You know, it was a remarkable 3 years. When I left, it was obviously a dark time. We'd had an election taken from us. We'd had January 6th. A lot of people thought the America First movement was dead and done. And I just believed in my heart that wasn't true. And I couldn't let that happen, or I needed to do everything I could to keep the movement going, because I believed it was and is the game changer for America. It is the bigger tent to allow all Americans to come in and fight for America. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent. And that it was based on that first Trump administration. So I'm just so proud of all of it, Coach. You know, we secured a border. The very last trip we took when President Trump was finishing out that first term, it was right before Joe Biden was inaugurated, was to the border. And I was with him, and we stood at the wall that he had visualized and that we as a team had built, and where illegal border crossings had decreased 94%.
As you know, we've completed the wall. They may want to expand it. We have the expansion underway. It's been tremendously successful, far beyond what anyone thought.
When you look at, for the first time in 70 years, energy independence, where the single mom in Detroit didn't have to choose between eating and heating. She could afford all of it. The lowest inflation, the lowest poverty rates, the highest job. So I think peace through strength, no new wars. So I think if I had to encapsulate that into the one thing I was most proud of, it would be this. It would be expanding the American dream into communities in this country who had never experienced it before, with real opportunity, real jobs, with their children having a real shot at a good education and a better life. And these underserved, marginalized communities had never experienced that before under any president until President Trump.
Well, I do know this. I've been in your home, and it is as beautiful as any I've been in.
Thank you.
I met your family. I know they're strong Aggie fans. But tell me, what was it like being a chief strategist in the White House while having 4 younger children? And what's your favorite memory?
It's interesting. I'm so overwhelmed and grateful at that experience for my family. Lily was 3rd grade, Anna was 5th grade, Jake was 6th grade, and Luke was 8th grade. 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 8th grade. We prayed about it, met as a family, and realized that, you know what, we can go serve our country for 1 year. It wasn't me going to serve, it was our whole family. And so we moved up to Washington. We homeschooled the kids up there, gave them the incredible opportunity coach, and they came into the White House almost every day. My mom moved with us. They came and would visit me in the White House in the afternoon, and I'd get home for a late dinner, and it was just it was a remarkable time for our family, and I'm so proud. All 4 of my kids love Jesus. They love America. They love Donald Trump. They're so excited at the opportunity that he may be back in the White House, and I think they're really proud. And I look back and I think there's no explanation that God's hand first was on President Trump, second was on our White House, but third was on my family, and really allowed that to be an incredible experience for them, and them getting to meet the president and know the Secret Service and know the people in the Navy mess and kind of run into my office, every day and say hi. And now they're 9th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and a sophomore at Texas A&M. Whoop. But I think they would say that was one of the highlights of their childhood, was getting that experience. So it was a joy just all around for all of us, frankly.
How have you managed to balance motherhood and a very successful career? What advice do you have to other young mothers trying to do it all?
I look back, and you and I both know and love our Alex Campana, who's just started this journey. She was next to me in the White House amongst so many other amazing young women who are now, many of them, with me at the America First Policy Institute, and they have embarked on their families while remaining in this righteous battle for freedom and for America. And I just feel so strongly that it's not for everyone, but for those young ladies who want to stay in the battle and make a difference and save America, while at the same time being the best wife and mom you can possibly be. It's such a joy to get to do all of it, and it all works together. Now, I will admit, I'm not in any book clubs. I don't play tennis. All my friends will say that they're just, waiting for the moment when I can meet them for happy hour again, because it's been a long time. But I'll also say I coached my daughter's softball team. I've been the room mom up at my kids' school. I drop them off every day, and I don't miss many of their sporting events, if any. And so there is an incredible gift to be able to do all of it, and it's very possible to do it, and that's just been one of the great joys of my life. And I will say now, looking back, my 20-year-old, 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and 14-year-old, I think they would say, and I've actually heard them say on a stage before when they're talking about me, that they always knew they were my priority, and they were always so grateful for that, and that it was really cool to see their mom go out and try to fight for America at the same time.
Well, Brooks, I can say this because I've watched it firsthand, but you're a great visionary and have built America's first policy into something no one thought was possible a few years ago. What's the secret, and what do you think has made America First Policy Institute so successful?
Well, I can tell you that very, very quickly. And that is the one thing that God gave me as a gift, was the ability to find amazing people and to bring them on together onto a team and to give them the platform to go change the world. That's really it. And you know that, Coach. I mean, talking about all the teams that you've built through the years, it's really just finding those people, not caring who gets the credit, never elevating self above others. We built AFPI on the concept of servant leadership, and that was really, for me, the first and perhaps most important, alongside obviously believing in the vision of America First and President Trump's first administration, but finding those servant leaders that always put the country and God and others before themselves. And I think that's the secret. And I'm just so grateful to all those people. Coach, we've not taken a breath. I mean, we left the White House and we started again 7 days a week, 18 hours a day for the last 3.5 years to build this infrastructure for the future of America. And I'm so grateful to all of those people, including you, by the way, for joining in when a lot of the country was saying no, that movement is over.
Well, in the Bible, it said Joseph died leaning on his staff. The same thing can be said about Brooks and about Lou Holtz. We died leaning on our staff.
Yes, we did.
That's absolutely. Now, your faith has always played a role in your life. But what Bible verses mean the most to you?
You know what's funny? It changes. It changes almost daily. Right now, we are very close to an election, as you know. And right now, the arrows are slinging every which way. So today, it is be strong and courageous, and that I am with you always. And so that, for me, is carrying me through some of the longer days we are visualizing and experiencing right now. But the one that probably is sort of my life's theme is do for the least of these that you do for me, and in so doing it for me. And all of my heart and work all these years has been for those with the least among us, those living at the margins of society, and understanding that our founder's vision of less government and of more freedom helps all of us, Coach, but it helps those with the least among us the most. And to have experienced that first in Texas and watching Texas cut our poverty rates by cutting government and lowering taxes, and then to see it firsthand in the last White House by cutting taxes and deregulating, America had the lowest poverty rates on record during the Trump administration. And so to have lived that and to have seen it firsthand has been one of my greatest blessings.
Well, listen to you is like listen to my wife. I was married for 59 years. She passed away 5 years ago. And when our house burned down, Brooke, she rebuilt it. And the first thing she built it around was her prayer room. She had a room where she just went in and prayed every single morning. And listen to you remind me so much of her. But what does the next 100 years for AFPI look like?
Well, and the goal was that the left has done, give them some credit, a remarkable job at owning the culture, at owning government, at owning the media, at really working around every corner and every step and never sleeping to move America towards socialism. And I just looked around, I said, we don't have an operation. There's some great organizations out there, but we don't have an operation on the playing field that today has a 100-year vision of how to not only push back on the socialists and those who believe in Marxism, but to provide a vision and an opportunity vision and a positive vision for what our founders intended 250 years ago. And so to provide that, to build that tent, to have a policy operation that, again, is not Republican, not independent, not Democrat. It's all about the policy. It's about freedom and opportunity and secure borders and peace through strength and an education system that's centered around parents and children, and a healthcare system that puts the patient and the doctor first. It's sort of all of these ideas that we believe is America first. It's not transgenderism. It's not tearing apart the family. It's not open borders and crime. It's not district attorneys that don't even prosecute certain crimes anymore. It's not any of that. It's safety, it's security, it's opportunity, it's prosperity. But we have to, coach, we have to get that message out to the American people. And then we have to show them how our ideas are the ones that make their lives better. And when we do that, we build a team that is unbeatable on the field for the next 100 years. And that's the vision of America First Policy Institute and our incredible partner, political operation, America First Works.
Well, I've been part of this for close to 4 years, and I got to tell you, it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I want to congratulate you and the other leaders of this, because you give us direction, but you don't force it. You don't stand over. You don't ridicule us. You don't correct it. You just lead us. And so it's just been such a blessing. But, Brooke, as you know, the theme of this show has been bringing back the culture of this country.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen it change. I'm 88, and I've seen it change a great deal. What do we have to do to bring it back, Brooks?
We have to reach into every corner of society in this country, and we have to be unequivocal. We have to get God back into the public square.
Amen.
We have to convince and persuade and change hearts and minds that the promises of equity and the promises of DEI and the promises that, we're all gonna be better off under a socialist system where we tax the wealthiest and we redistribute the wealth to the poorest, that the people that hurts the most, again, are those with the least among us. And it's a harder argument to make in 30-second sound bites in social media today, right? Like, should we redistribute everyone's wealth and everyone gets a car and a house and an education? And if that actually worked, it would be great. But we know it doesn't work. And Cuba and Venezuela and Russia, and we've had so many examples in front of us of it, how that actually destroys communities and creates such poverty that people never escape. But when we can make that case to the American people, not only within the federal government, the state governments, but down into the local governments. And when we bring the country together and when we create a unifying vision and when we center it all and organize it all around the America First agenda that President Trump brought to bear as he rode the golden escalator into history back in 2015, that's how we win. And I would have never guessed back in 2014, 2015, that it would have been a businessman from New York who came in to shake the establishment, both Republican and Democrat establishment, to their core, to completely recalibrate an entire country around a set of policies that include winning the culture back, Coach, by the way, giving permission to our Black communities, our Hispanic communities, that it's okay to be a conservative. In fact, it is our set of policy ideas that will lift you to a better life.
Well, you said it beautifully, and I agree with you completely on it. And you've been a great guest. I know you're a big A&M fan, and you're having a great year, and you got a big game coming up against the Longhorns. And I used to say this when I was in Arkansas. That means we're number 2. But
we're number 2. Hey, listen, it's been a long road for the Aggies and the Aggie fans. As you know, Coach, because you and I have been going back and forth. At the beginning of every season, I say, Coach Holtz, I think this is the Aggie season. And you say, Brooke, I love you, but this is not the Aggie season. Well, now I think we're 7 games in and we're looking pretty good. But we got South Carolina coming up, which is maybe a spoiler, but I don't think so. And then for the first time in more than a decade, we're playing the Longhorns, that little school over in Austin, and it's going to be epic. So God bless you, Coach Holtz. Thanks for being a kind of an Aggie fan every now and then, just because I know you love me. So thank you.
I do love you, and I love AFPI. And thank you so much for joining us, Brooks. God bless you. Thank you for the wisdom you shared with so many people here today.
Oh, I love you, Coach. Thank you for everything. And we're going to go save America and save our country. God bless you.
Amen. God bless.
Amen.
And he walks away after winning his 100th game as the head coach here at Notre Dame.
The reason I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I was born in this country. It isn't what you have, it's what you're taught about the values of life.
We trying to save souls.
So there's a rule in life that you're either growing or you're dying. And like an old friend once said, we as Americans need to start winning again.
Everyone should ask this question. Am I willing to endure the pain and the suffering and the sacrifice it takes to be a champion?